For Lab 3 we have two options, Kyle or MCUXpresso. However, in the lab we do not have ARM-Kyle set up, and MCUXpresso is, so we're going to use this version of Lab 3. Now MCUXpresso only works on the Freedom K64, not the 22, but we have all these labs that are filled with Freedom K64s. Now in the version that works with MCUXpresso, there's two links here for two different files, and they're basically the same program, but you'll see what the differences are shortly. Now to bring these into the compiler, you're going to click on the link, and up here what you're going to find is that there are three options. Import into Kyle, import with MBED CLI, but we're always going to use import into compiler. We're going to add a little bit extra to this file. We're going to say blinking led underscore, and we're going to put in here MBED. And the reason why we're doing this is because this program here will work with MBED and compile for MBED, but the next one won't. We'll see why in a second. Now let's click on the second link, and again we're going to import into compiler. This time, instead of having the word copy at the end, we're going to put in MCU, because this is going to be for MCUXpresso, and we'll see why this is in a second. Now we can see that test here, which is from this download, and blinking LEDs from this download are exactly the same code. But there is a major difference here. If we hit the plus sign on MBED, we're going to see documentation not ready. And this MBED library will allow us to compile on MBED and download from MBED, but it will not allow us to export to MCUXpresso. This one here has classes, and this one will export to MCUXpresso, but you cannot compile it for MBED. So the concept is the one that says documentation not ready will work just on MBED, but not on MCUXpresso. This one here will work on MCUXpresso, but not on MBED. Let's try exporting this particular project to MCUXpresso. If we right mouse click and say export program, then we should be able to find from this drop down list something that says MCUXpresso, but we don't, and I wonder why that is. But if we happen to go up here, we can see why that's a problem, because we've got the wrong board here. We've got the Freedom K22, so we click on this, cancel this, and then if we click on this, we can change it to the board that's in the lab. And now, if we go right mouse click and say export program and look at our drop down list, we can definitely see that MCUXpresso is in the list here. So it works on the Freedom K64, but not the K22. If we say export, save file, and once we do, we can take a look at it. There it is. And if we want to right mouse click and show in Finder, we can see that it's sitting here. And since this is the first version of this we haven't any bracket 1s or bracket 2s, because bracket 1s and bracket 2s will not work when we try to import it into MCUXpresso. Now MCUXpresso is available in the labs through My Apps. I happen to have it here, so I'm just going to click on it and it's going to launch. Every time it launches, we're going to go up here and just close this little welcome screen, and we should see this screen coming up. Now, one of the things we should check right away is say File, and go down here to Switch Workspace, and go to Other. And it should be set right now, Downloads, and if it's not, you're going to have to set it to Downloads, and then you're just going to launch. And at this point, we can then say File, Import, and under General here, we can go to Projects from Folder Archive, to hit Next. Go over here to say Archive. We should find it in here. Here's our blinking LED MCUXpresso one, so we're just going to double click and it should show up here. Then we're just going to go down here to the bottom and say Finish, and it should show up here. If we open this up and open this up, we should be able to then go down to blinkingleds.cpp, double click, and we have our program in here. Now, assuming your Freedom K64 in the lab is connected, which it should be, and you should be seeing DAP-Link as one of your devices, you should be able to now go up to this blue button, click on it, and it should do this and drop you to here where it's actually picked up the DAP-Link, so it sees that it's here. Then we should be able to just say OK. And when you see all this happening on the screen, you know it's ready to go and do your debugging. Now when we run our code, just by hitting this arrow, we should see the red light blinking. Now we can hit pause, which is this one, and then we can go back here, blinking LEDs here to bring this up. And what we can do is set breakpoints. So we can set a breakpoint, say at the wait, double click, and a wait, double click here. Then we can just hit run, and it runs to the first breakpoint, the LED is on, run it again to the second breakpoint, the light is off, and so forth. So we can do this kind of thing. But we can also do step over. So if we say step over, it's going to step over that, and now the light is on, and as soon as we step over this, the light is off. And we can do these sorts of things very easily to troubleshoot our program just by setting breakpoints, or we can clear these and we can just go back to the start of our code by hitting this guy here, which is your restart button, and then just stepping over what we've got here. So it's on, we wait, we turn the LED off, we wait, and we go back. Now we also have step into, and step into is kind of interesting because it does things by going down through the hardware abstraction layer to show you a lot more detail about what's going on. Now we're not going to really go to this level, but you can see this hardware abstraction layer here shows you step by step of what's happening under the hood. Hardware abstraction layer, that's why 170 different boards will work exactly the same way. Their hardware abstraction layer is a little bit different. Now there's a couple things that you have to do when you're finished using a particular project here. First thing, you're going to hit this red button here, which is going to stop the project itself. The other thing you should do is right mouse click here, delete, and delete it by clicking here and clicking down here. Once you've done that, you're able to bring in another program. One of the things you're going to find though is if we say file import, and this is something that was mentioned I think, if we do this business here and say projects from other folder and we go over here and say archive, the archive itself cannot be bracket 1 bracket or bracket 2 bracket because it will not work when you try and import it into MCUXpresso. It's going to give you errors. One other thing I should mention, once you close down MCUXpresso and you want to use MBED again, but the problem is it won't download if you've just used MCUXpresso. So what you have to do is, if you want to go back to MBED, is disconnect your cable, put it back into the computer, and everything should run fine.